Welcome back to WJAG-TV. This week we'll be visiting Alabama with peer leadership, tuning in to the upcoming 2020 presidential election, and going to the rodeo with Joseph Becker. My name is Maya Jordan.
And my name is Aaliyah Nowell.
And this is WJAG-TV with your weekly school news.
The students of peer leadership here at Cedar recently went on a field trip to Montgomery, Alabama, in which they visited many historical memorial sites. Let's check out the experience of the trip with Catherine Wang and Roro Jamul.
As we enter the waiting room.
Cedar Soul students set out on April 4th to visit both Montgomery and Birmingham, Alabama. Both of these historical cities played large roles in the desegregation movement, and in these two cities, students visited the Legacy Museum and the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute.
Me and Ms. Gordon originally went in May. UGA paid for us to go. And when we saw the museums that we went to, we were like, oh my goodness, we have to take Cedar Soul students back here. So we took 46 students to Montgomery on the first day to see two museums, and then we stayed overnight in Montgomery, and then we went to Birmingham the next day.
Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, that was my favorite one because it kind of took you like through a journey, if that makes sense, and it had like a lot of like live things, like for example like a black classroom back then versus a white classroom, and you could like see the differences.
My favorite was the first one that we went to because there were a lot of videos that were shown and a lot of interactive things that you could do. There was like a panel where you could like click on each state and it would show you how many lynchings were in each state.
Yeah, the second one that we saw, because we got to see like actual instances of like the bus scene and where Martin Luther King was actually jailed in, the cell and everything, so I actually felt closer to that.
So for me, Birmingham Civil Rights Center was amazing because I honestly wasn't expecting as much as there was. It's just a massive museum with so much information and like a lot of artifacts. So for me, that was the most fun part. And then also like seeing the church and seeing the students go into the church where the 4 girls were murdered, I felt like was a really powerful part of our trip that I didn't really expect or plan on.
I like the different museums that we went to, but I think my favorite part was a live like TV going kind of, and it was just like showing different perspectives from like the slaves at that time.
There were all of the brick things hanging from the ceiling that had the people who were lynched, and they were all like in memory of the people that were lynched.
It was really powerful to see just how many people actually were lynched.
So when we went to Birmingham and then we were like walking around the park and stuff, I like that, just seeing it live and like the different statues.
They threw Martin Luther King in jail without a bail, because that must have been like how much he actually meant in the civil rights movement, that they actually threw him in without a bail so he couldn't help people outside.
The museums weren't the only source of information that was made available to the students while in the two cities. The people living in the surrounding area also provided their stories from their first-hand experiences.
When we were in Montgomery, we had a lady speak to us. I think her name was Mary. Her story shocked me a lot. I was really surprised to like hear that happen to like a real life person.
Just hearing her tell stories about how the KKK threatened her father when she got into college, or how the KKK murdered her cousin, and you're looking at this woman and you're like, she's not that old, you know, she looks like somebody I would see in the grocery store.
Like you always hear, like you hear about it, like we've learned about this since we were like really young, but to like see it, like experience with someone and like hear them talk about their pain, it's like a real life experience, so it was enlightening.
There's a part of the museum where you can talk on the phone with people who are in prison. Obviously you're not really talking to them, it's like a recording. And so Tar and some people were listening to this man talk about how he was sentenced to prison at 14 years old, and how Bryan Stevenson helped him get off death row and the Supreme Court decision. And then Tar and all them turned around, and the guy who was in the video as a younger man was standing right there. And he had come that day to speak about how Bryan Stevenson had got him out of prison. And I think that was really almost scary and shocking to the kids because they like literally turned around and he was right there. But once again, he was not that old, you know, he looked like about, you know, he looked like a young guy. And so, like I said, those kind of stories I think are the ones that impact us the most. I know for y'all, when you went to the church and you met the man who was 8 years old when it happened, I feel like when you meet people, that's when history becomes really real, because you're looking at the face of people who have experienced it. And it just like all of a sudden you want to learn stuff about it, you want to read books about it because you've met actual people who have been impacted by it.
I don't think it altered my past like thoughts, but I do think it definitely like opened my eyes to see how much of a struggle different African Americans went through.
When I got to go to these different museums and hear from people, it definitely made me think on it a lot more.
I don't think I was aware of how bad the situation really was and how like dehumanizing it was towards African Americans to be sentenced to death for things that they didn't even do.
One student said today, Blake, in first period, he was like, it was crazy to me that I had to go to Alabama to learn about things that happened right here in our own county. We realized that the history we learn about is still really affecting us as a society today.
It was such a powerful opportunity for us. I'm so glad Ms. Johnson and Ms. Sport took us, because I know honestly I probably never would have had the opportunity to go any other time, so I'm really glad that I went.
While there won't be a trip to Alabama next year, Ms. Johnson hopes to continue this trip the year following. This is Ridwan signing out, back to the studio.
It takes a certain amount of craziness to run for any office, let alone for president. There are many candidates for the upcoming 2020 presidential election. Here's Trent Dennison with more information about the upcoming event.
With the final years of Donald Trump's presidency coming to an end, there is a lot of debate around the 2020 election, especially on the side of Democrats. As it stands, there are 17 declared candidates from the Democrat side alone, so it can kind of hard to know who you might agree with and vote for. While most Democrats agree on key issues, there are still some key differences that can help with their race for presidency. Joe Biden is the former vice president of Obama. His main platform points include increased funding for mass transit and public transportation, tax credits for students, public service loan forgiveness, renewable energy subsidies, increased taxes for the wealthy, and universal health care. He also opposes the legalization of recreational marijuana and believes in reduced military spending. Bernie Sanders, a senator from Vermont, also ran for president in the 2016 election. His platform, while similar to Joe Biden and most other Democratic candidates, also differs in some regards. His key issues are focused around free public higher education, free Medicare, guaranteed jobs for all, as well as strict firearm laws. Unlike Joe Biden, he wants the decriminalization of recreational marijuana. Beto O'Rourke, a Democratic representative from Texas, has made immigration the central part of his campaign, saying, "We are not safe because of walls, but in spite of walls." Aside from denouncing Trump's militaristic enforcement on the border, he also believes in strict gun laws. In 2016, after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, he live-streamed a sit-in on the House floor for stricter gun laws. Similarly to Biden and Sanders, he also believes in universal health care. He also made his stances on racial and economic inequalities in the justice system known, calling for decriminalization of marijuana, closing of for-profit prisons, elimination of minimum required sentences for nonviolent crimes, and the reformation of the bail system. Kamala Harris, a California senator, like most of her opponents, believe in stricter gun laws, free or reduced tuition for higher education, and universal health care. She is different in her idea of a national preschool program. She also agrees with the Paris Agreement, environmental agreement that Trump backed out of in 2017, while opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, citing many Asian countries not protecting their workers or not within environmental protection policies. While these are some of the more popular candidates, that doesn't mean that the others not listed are not important. If you would like to know more about these candidates or others not mentioned, please spend some time researching, and maybe you'll be able to vote in the primaries on who will be running as the Democratic nominee for 2020.
Joseph Becker went down to the UGA Livestock Arena. It is ran by the Block and Bridle Club, which is the largest student-ran rodeo in the country. Let's slip on our cowboy boots and mosey on down to the rodeo.
The Great Southland Stampede Rodeo has been around for 45 years. First performing in the Stegman Coliseum, now they are performing in the UGA Livestock Arena.
So I think
the rodeo's biggest thing is it kind of just brings people in. They're like, oh, I've never been to a rodeo. It kind of brings people to see the rodeo side of ag almost.
The rodeo's performances and attractions are all run 100% by students, meaning this is the largest student-run rodeo in the country.
So Block and Bridle is one of the larger clubs, and they do a lot of livestock area endeavors, such as showing cows and kind of like promoting that area of ag.
These clubs and groups have set up the rodeo 3 days before it actually starts, meaning that they have a lot of work on their hands. The rodeo has quite a few main events, from stunts performed on horseback to lasso competitions. And with these events comes the students and people that help set it up 3 days before.
Having it is really set up by training your next generation of folks coming in.
But when it's all over, they put the proceeds to good use.
We're not here for profit. All of our money and proceeds goes back to other donations. So we donate to different student organizations like FFA and 4-H chapters locally.
But even though the rodeo's ended for this year, preparations for the next are already underway, getting ready for another round of excitement and fun. This has been Joseph Becker with WJAG-TV.
Now let's move on to sports.
Welcome to this week's WJAG-TV Sports News. The Cedar soccer teams played their last games of the regular season last Saturday against Clark Central. The varsity boys lost 0-2, but will still be progressing to the playoffs for the second year in a row.
The boys soccer team has concluded the regular season, playing their last game against Clark Central this past Saturday. The boys weren't able to win, but still ended the season good enough to progress to playoffs. The girls team also ended the regular season against Clark Central, losing 3-0, and unfortunately weren't able to make it to the playoffs. Both the girls and boys teams have made great improvements throughout this season, and hopes are remaining high for next year.
I feel like we did a lot of good stuff, but also we didn't execute our chances.
It's been a rough season. Definitely could have done better.
There's mixed feelings. Some people think we did okay, some people think we did bad. It just depends on the person.
I'd say probably our midfield. This is probably one of the best midfields we've had. We definitely controlled and just made the best of it.
I feel like we had a really solid midfield for sure. Our midfield was very strong.
Hopefully we can improve on our offense. Definitely score in front of the goal. Try and move the ball better and just keep our solid defense.
Finishing for sure. We have to put away the chances.
Hopefully just try and make it the next round and just give it all we got.
Feeling good. Hopefully get a win.
That's it for this week's sports news.
Given that reading isn't everyone's forte, Cedar Shoals began the Reading Comprehension Incentive. Such incentives promote reading and encourages students to continually improve their comprehensive skills. This is the first year that Cedar Shoals hosted a reading field day. Sachio Goody and Oliver Nessel participated in the event. Let's take a look.
After the average reading inventory scores rose by a large percent, the Media Center decided to put together a celebration for students who showed growth throughout the year. That celebration became Reading Field Day, a 2-hour field day that took place in the stadium. Many students came out to play games, eat pizza, and socialize. Teachers explained the growth in scores, and students shared their thoughts on the event with us.
And reading inventory has a goal that's considered like if you're doing well, this is where you're going to be at the end. So anybody who met that goal was invited, or who exceeded the goal was invited to the field day. And the reason why we really need that, we need these celebrations, is to really lift one another up.
So I sent out a Google form to the students. I think it's been about a month ago. So the ones that were voted for were tug of war, kickball, we've got freeze tag, I've got an egg race, also a three-legged race, and we're going to do a relay race on the back 100 meters of the track. And then we're also going to have face painting, and for folks who really just, you know, want to be there but they're not sure they want to do the athletic activities, we're going to have 2 fairly large reading areas set up if you want to read or hang out with your friends.
It was, the way we had fun was basically we just like got out of class, we went to go get a reward, which was like just playing any type of activity that there was. And basically after we played, pizza was brought, so we went to go eat and just chill with our friends and continue to play a little bit more.
So in the past, you know, we always ask people to read, but we don't tell them why, and we don't tell them what they're striving for. So this year, what we've done differently is the English teachers have all, we've collaborated with the English teachers and made sure they had the students' reading inventory scores early, so that they could share those with their students, and so the students could set goals for themselves because they needed to know where they were before they could choose where they wanted to be by the end of the school year.
I didn't read like books from the library, I just like read more online, like ebooks, and I did like a lot of vocabulary.com.
Honestly, one of the things, I have consistently used vocabulary.com for the past 3 years, and so I've been able to kind of see what it does, and I've used, you know, I went from teaching seniors and juniors to sophomores and juniors, and I've been able to see clearly over the last 3 years that the students who do it with the most diligence, who really stick with it, they're the ones that I really see a lot of growth in. And so that's kind of the single most important thing that I see, that the kids who are reading more are making more progress. The kids that are putting in the time and the work are seeing results from it. So it's just how to get them to buy in that, you know, this is a good thing.
That seems to be all for this week, Jags. Again, my name is Maya Jordan.
And I'm Aaliyah Nowell.
And this has been WJAG-TV with your weekly school news.